the people saying or feel about, and how is it going to materially change the conditions of the people? He was indeed a precious treasure at the service of the people for freedom, peace, and justice. We stand here today emboldened in our convictions that his was a life that was well lived, a life inseparable from the trials and tribulations of the masses, their joys and sorrows till the end. The African National Congress has lost a giant in you, Comrade Zola, a cadre of unquestionable loyalty and dedication to the revolution. This doyen of our revolution belonged to a special generation of our movement, the death-defying generation of the Luthuli detachment that inspired successive generations of youth to take the war right at the doorsteps of the enemy at a time when the racist minority regime took refuge between the trigger of a gun to consolidate their illegitimate grip to power. Madam Speaker, we talk here about the courageous and militant young revolutionaries of our movement, most of whom lost their lives in the line of duty, whilst others continue to keep the flames of revolution burning. These are the likes of Comrade Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu, Pani Molokwani, Benjamin Moloise, Ashley Krill, Vuyo Charles, Simpuem Timkulu, Bekim Lange, Ephraim Mukhale, Peter Mokaba, Pax Mangasana, and many more. I will not do injustice to history if I do not mention how the ANC youth section, comrades, who played a critical role in connecting us with the generations of Comrade Zola Skweyiya. We stand here today to bid farewell to Comrade Zola at a time when Oliver Tambo is no more, to share with us special attributes that attracted him to appoint Comrade Zola as one of the leading architects of the ANC constitutional guidelines for the post-apartheid democratic South Africa. The celebration of South Africa's constitution as among the best by international community vindicates Oliver Tambo's choice of Zola Skweyiya for special assignment, which he discharged with distinction. Comrade Zola, we have learned from your own teachings and exemplary conduct that leadership is not about the comfort and prestige of an elected office, but courage of conviction to connect with the masses and act as their voice when it matters the most. You leave us at a time when the revolutionary movement that you dedicated your entire life for is at a critical crossroad. This crossroad is midwife of only two possibilities: recovery and renewal, or a road to self-destruction. As we were there to witness the birth pains of the recovery and renewal, we are confident that as you cease to breathe, you did so confident that this movement has indeed entered a new dawn that breaks rank with the past to address the urgent task of unity, employment, and education. Be assured that the tempo and gravitas of this recovery have shattered the myth of those who have penned millions of obituaries about this movement of the people, the African National Congress. This made some to slumber in the false sense of comfort that the weakness and setbacks of this movement are permanent and a God-given gift to them as the ultimate choice of the people of South Africa. This false sense of comfort has been proven wrong by history, as some are going through unprecedented internal turbulences. On our part, the urgent task is to emulate your legacy by consolidating the unity, recovery, and renewal of our movement for battles ahead. In doing this, occupy public space as torchbearers of truth, even if it coincides with the enemy, as we have done in your entire life. As we enter this arduous and difficult journey, we will always remember your usual precision and yet critical disposition of fundamental questions of revolutionary theory and practice. We are alive to the fact that if you were to be alive, we would not escape the wrath of your critical challenge to define the meaning of the new dawn to the lives of ordinary South Africans. Speaker, honorable members, the new dawn represents continuity and change in the ongoing struggle for the victory of the National Democratic Revolution, guided by the fundamental vision of the African National Congress as articulated in the Freedom Charter and other policy perspectives. Critical to this new dawn is the declaration by our movement of this current phase of transition as a phase of radical socio-economic transformation. What is radical socio-economic transformation? A new policy shift in the ANC or continuity? By radical socio-economic transformation, we reaffirm the historic vision of the ANC as articulated 1969 ANC Morogoro Conference, and I quote, "In our country more than in any other part of the oppressed world, it is inconceivable that liberation to have meaning without a return to wealth of the land to the people as a whole. It is therefore a fundamental feature of our strategy that victory must embrace more than formal political democracy. To allow the existing economic forces to retain their interest intact is to feed the root of racial supremacy and does not represent even the shadow of liberation. Our drive towards national emancipation is therefore, in a very real way, bound up with economic emancipation." Close quote. We have reaffirmed this perspective at each given epoch of our revolution with different emphasis. The resolution of the 54th Conference of the ANC on expropriation of land without compensation is a culmination of the evolution of ANC perspective on radical economic transformation. Our approach to this question through the constitutional framework is based on the international best practice to ensure that this land expropriation is within the limits of the law. We do this to defend your legacy as one of the leading architects of the vision of our constitutional dispensation. Part of this legacy is to ensure that this radical socio-economic transformation does not become elite-packed, but should benefit the overwhelming majority of the people. Comrade Zola has demonstrated unquestionable loyalty and dedication to the African National Congress throughout his life by serving the ANC wherever it deemed it fit to deploy him. He never sought to be on the top six of the ANC through thick and thin in order to lay a claim to leadership. He knew that a leader is not defined by office, but selflessness to serve the masses and clarity of vision. Despite his academic achievements, which are outstanding, of course, he displays higher disdain to bookish approach to fundamental questions of theory and practice of the revolution, by always seeking to be at the level of the masses, learning from them, leading side by side with them. This was particularly pronounced when he pioneered the policy on the child support grant, where he transcended narrow ideological position to put our people first. Comrade Zola's successive generations of South Africans will emulate your legacy for many years to come and be assured of our resolve to keep this legacy alive. Aluta. Thanks.
Honorable Mukhalapa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, allow me to... All right. Let's restart. Let's restart. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, allow me to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Dr. Skweyiya, as well as the ANC. Words cannot express enough the loss you have suffered. A man with impeccable struggle credentials and a distinguished academic career, the giant of the struggle. Born as Zola Sidney Skweyiya in April 14th in 1942 in Simonstown, he went to school in Port Elizabeth and Retreat in Cape Town and matriculated from Lovedale School in Alice in 1960. He became an ANC activist during his studies at Fort Hare University, where he mobilized for Umkhonto weSizwe. He joined the ANC in 1956 until his exile to Tanzania. He also underwent extensive military training in Russia. In 1978, the ANC deployed him to Germany to study law, where he obtained an LLD degree. He was later deployed as a representative of the ANC and was responsible for setting up offices of the ANC in Addis Ababa in 1981. He later was tasked to head the ANC Legal and Constitutional Department in Lusaka in 1990 and in Johannesburg until 1994. On his return from exile, he was the chair of the ANC's Constitutional Committee and served as the ANC NEC member until 2012. He also served the new democratic South African government as the first Minister of Public Service and Administration under President Mandela from 1994 to 1999, and served as the Minister of Social Development from 1999 to 2009 under President Mbeki. Ubaba Zola played a significant role in South Africa's democratic dispensation with active participation in the CODESA. And he represented the ANC at the United Nations Human Rights Council between 1984 and 1993. He was an astute member of the military veterans. They indeed has lost a gallant soldier. He was an intellectual who contributed to the founding the Center for Development Studies and South African Legal Defense Fund at the University of the Western Cape. Ubaba Zola Skweyiya was also an astute diplomat who made an impact as the head of the UNESCO's Management of Social Transformation Program and president of the Intergovernmental Council. He also participated in the United Nations Commission for Social Development, making a significant contribution to multilateral forums and flying the South African flag high. As a diplomat par excellence, his contribution in UNESCO is well documented. He also played a key role in the University of Oxford's Department of Social Policy Intervention, assisting in the program of poverty eradication and building quality evidence-based social policy research and training. His memorial lectures from 2011 to 2015 were hosted by the Center for the Analysis of South African Social Policy in recognition of his contribution as the Minister of Social Development. It was significantly as a High Commissioner and Ambassador to the United Kingdom from 2009 to 2014, where he made his mark as a patriotic and skilled diplomat, championing the bilateral relations between South Africa and the United Kingdom. He also made a significant contribution with regards to multilateral relations when he was appointed as a special envoy to the Middle East conflict in 2014, where he worked tirelessly to find a resolution to the Palestinian and Israel conflict. He held talks with both sides of the conflict, showing how impartial and diplomatic he was, using soft diplomacy as his strongest, greatest attribute. Let us all, honorable members, learn from this humanitarian, intellectual, and exceptional diplomat who prioritized the well-being of South Africa and its people. This kind of diplomat that South Africa needs to put brand South Africa on the global map. He had courage to speak truth to power and was vocal against wrongdoing and deviation from the principles and values. We, as the Democratic Alliance, we salute your bravery. Rest in peace, the son of the soil. Go mokgatlo wa ANC, rona re le mokgatlo wa Democratic Alliance, re re go motsegang. Modimo o ne a neile, mme o buile o tsere. A mowa wa Rre Skweyiya o robale ka kagiso, mogaka wa digaka. Modimo a go tshegofatse. Isithalandwe. Ke a leboga.
The Honorable Gadi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. We acknowledge the presence of the families of Dr. Skweyiya and Winnie Mandela. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, our Deputy President, DSG, public representatives of the EFF and members of the House. Quite a number of spears do fall, and it is not only all of them that must be picked up. Very few are worth to be picked up, and that of Dr. Skweyiya is amongst those very few privileged spears that if they've fallen, they need to be picked up. Dr. Skweyiya demonstrated his commitment to clean public administration as the first Minister of Public Administration in 1994. He appointed the white Judge White Commission, which dealt with a frivolous promotion on the eve of the democratic dispensation, which promotions were found in most of the Homeland administration. I mean, people who will be a constable just on the eve of the 27th of April, they were made generals and all that. And he did implement those recommendations of the Judge White Commission. He also led the amalgamation of almost more than 10 public service administration of the homelands into a single public administration, including that of the Nationalist Party, into one single public administration of the country. He inherited a public service sector that was racialized and highly politicized, as opposed to being people-centered and service delivery-oriented. He introduced the Batupili principle in 1997 in order to reorientate the public service to serve the public with dignity, respect, and deliver the service to our people. It was him who actually appointed Professor Stan Sangweni. Chief Whip of the ANC will know that the first fly-by-night PhD Director General was actually discovered by a Minister of Public Service then, Minister Skweyiya, together with Professor Stan Sangweni. And there were serious consequences then when he was a public service minister, not today where there are absolutely no consequences for all shenanigans in the public service. If he was alive, he will be appalled at the pervasive culture of arrogance at the public service and the culture of politicians feeling that they are entitled to be treated as kings and as servants of the people. He will be appalled by what is going on in the Northwest. I don't see Premier Supra Mohamapilo here, because that is a province where we find our people's dignity being undermined. Old people in ANC T-shirts are being pushed in wheelbarrows from one home to one hospital to the other. That is not what Dr. Skweyiya will have agreed to as a Minister of Public Service, because he knew that Batupili principles should be found everywhere in the public service. He will be appalled at the person of Supra himself and those who fight to keep him in power, despite many of his shenanigans and his rejection by the people of the Northwest. Taking the money of the Department of Health, giving it to the Guptas. The next thing we see our people being pushed in wheelbarrows to hospitals. We are saying that in the person of Dr. Skweyiya, that will not have happened. He must be turning in his grave to actually hear and see of the stories that we tell you today about the corruption that is found and the poor public service that we offer to our people. He was part of the 101 veterans who were concerned about the degeneration in the ANC. And for this, they were repeatedly mocked by Mr. Zuma, who questioned their struggle credentials. It's unfortunate that the President of the Republic is not here. We'll have told him in his face to actually start the process of apologizing to the remaining 99 stalwarts instead of waiting for them to die and thereafter posthumously apologize. To the family of Dr. Skweyiya, his friends, his comrades in the ANC, particularly the stalwarts, we assure you that the loss is not yours alone. On our side, as the EFF, we commit ourselves to carry the spear and continue the fight for a just society, for equality before the law, for equal distribution of resources, for quality public health care, for free and quality education, for a public service that is responsive to the needs of the citizen. To Dr. Skweyiya, rest in peace, soldier. Rest in peace, Mtakwenda, Leta Solizembe, Kwangeshe, Jebelendle. You have run your perfect race May your soul rest in power and rise in glory. Amandla. Thank you, Madam.
The Honorable Buthelezi.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of the NCOP, Honorable Members of the National Assembly. In May 1994, 37 South Africans became ministers in the cabinet of President Nelson Mandela. And according to the newspaper, the New York Times, it was stated, and I quote it, an eclectic, even explosive mix of personalities, backgrounds, and styles that would challenge Mr. Mandela's promise to govern by consensus, unquote. I was among that mix as Minister of Home Affairs, and I found myself in the company of Dr. Zola, Sydney, Temba, Skweyiya, who had been appointed Minister of Public Service and Administration. Over the course of the next 10 years, I had risen again and again to be grateful for his presence. For although we served in a government of national unity, I was made acutely aware of the fact that I was an IFP minister in an ANC cabinet. Indeed, our Minister of Foreign Affairs was none other than the Honorable Ms. Alfred Zola, who 14 years previously had launched a vicious campaign of vilification against me, declaring that I would, quote, swept away onto the rubbish heap of history. This despite the fact that he had been a member of the delegation of Mr. Oliver Tambo in a very cordial meeting of the ANC and the IFP in London. Yet whenever my colleagues in the cabinet attacked my contribution on the basis of politics rather than merit, Minister Zola Skweyiya would tell you, you are being unfair to our colleague. He had no fear of speaking up for principles. He was a man of integrity and a leader who had more interested in the good of his country than playing politics. He was one of the very few who were willing to say what needed to be said rather than what was expected to be said. That is a rare quality in politics. We saw this quality expressed again and again when Dr. Skweyiya spoke out against the former president and the depth of corruption that thrived under his leadership. It took courage for him to speak, and the response must have caused him tremendous pain. I therefore applaud our President Ramaphosa, for speaking so honestly at Dr. Skweyiya's funeral. We thank the President for apologizing on behalf of the ANC for disappointing Dr. Skweyiya and for causing such distress to the veterans and stalwarts of the party. It is testimony to his character that Dr. Skweyiya never stopped serving his country. When he was appointed as our envoy at the Palace of St. James, I couldn't think there was anyone more equipped than he was. While he's remembered as a minister and a member of the ANC's NEC, as our ambassador and a champion of human rights, I would like to honor him for a less-known position that he held. In 2011, Dr. Skweyiya agreed to serve on the board of directors of the Parliamentary Institute of South Africa, PISA. PISA was designed to bring together members of parliament outside of their political affiliation, to share expertise and find solutions to the many problems besetting our country. It emanated out of the conviction that good people can and must come together, irrespective of different political views, race, responsibilities in society, and origin. Within PISA, leaders with both intellect and vision could find the courage to speak about ugly realities confronting South Africa without fearing immediate public relations consequences. There was no scoring of political points, no pointing fingers or making accusations. There was only an exchange of ideas for the purpose of analyzing ailments to find adequate remedies. PISA allowed members of parliament to follow the dictates of their conscience without having to toe party lines to recite pre-prepared political directives. It appealed to Dr. Skweyiya precisely because this allowed you to serve our country first than anything else. It is tragic that Dr. Skweyiya's passing was preceded by the passing of PISA. To my mind, Honorable Speaker, The best tribute that we as members of parliament could pay to our honorable colleague would be to re-establish the Parliamentary Institute, PISA. In that way, we will continue a legacy that must be honored. On behalf of the IFE, I extend my deepest condolences to Her Excellency, Ambassador Skweyiya, and the Skweyiya family, and the Mazibuko family, and to the ANC, the party that is served with such integrity. We have all suffered a tangible loss. Today, I salute a freedom fighter and a peacemaker. As Christ our Lord said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God."
The Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Chair of the National Council of Provinces, the executive, honorable members. On behalf of the President of the National Freedom Party, the Honorable Zanele Kamakwaza Msibi, the NFP caucus and the party as a whole, I would wish to convey our condolences to the family of Dr. Skweyiya, former Minister of Social Development, former Minister of Public Service and Administration, former Ambassador to UK and Ireland, the freedom fighter, the true compatriot, the visionary and a true servant of the people. The National Freedom Party conveys condolences to the ANC and all South Africans whose lives were touched and well served by the rare breed of leadership which Dr. Skweyiya epitomized. Before he passed on, he came out and expressed himself openly about his displeasure on things that were not going well in our country. Dr. Skweyiya served this country with distinction in exile and also within our borders. He left an indelible mark and unchallenged legacy as the architect of our public service and administration and social development. His mind was always preoccupied about how best the people of South Africa could be served. He was head of the ANC Constitutional Development Team during the negotiations for a democratic South Africa at CODESA. He will be remembered as the architect of the social security system, the child support grant, the nutritional feeding scheme in early childhood educators and primary schools. He could indeed be referred to as the founder of the Batubile principles. The nation is therefore mourning the death of a true compatriot, the true servant of the people. He was instrumental in ensuring that our children were fed and that poverty was alleviated. The existence of the 17 million social grants recipients to date is due to the hard work of Dr. Skweyiya, who worked tirelessly and ensured the firm foundation of it. Dr. Skweyiya traveled all over the country organizing massive community meetings, registering people for pensions, the child support grant, disability grant, foster care grant, etc. He worked well with NPOs, NGOs, CPOs, etc. His vision was that of a caring and a better South Africa. He was a policy guru, legal eagle, and a gentle giant and he truly loved this country. He was an academic and intellectual of note. He received a Doctor of Laws degree from a university in Germany in 1978. He assisted in setting up the Center for Development Studies at the University of Western Cape and the South African Legal Defense Fund. Honorable Speaker, the passing on of Dr. Skweyiya 3 days just before his birthday has robbed this country of one of its finest and respected sons, a freedom fighter, a selfless Democrat, an icon, and a struggle veteran. Njenge-National Freedom Party sithi lala ngoxolo qhawela amaqhawe, ukulwila ukulokuhle, uligijimile ibanga, uyifezile inkonzo yakho, wawenza umsebenzi wakho owabuthunyiwe ngumdali, ngamandla wonke usekhona emhlabeni. Wawenza ngokwethembeka okukhulu nangokuzikhandla okumangalisayo. Sohlala sikhumbula ube isibonelo esihle sobuholo obuqotho. Uyibekile induku ebandla. Njengomphostoli Paula, ungasho na ukuthi you are waiting for the glory that the Lord has set for you. Lala ngoxolo, siyabonga.
The Honorable Majeke.
Honorable Speaker, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, honorable members of the Skweyiya and Mama Winnie Mandela families, good afternoon. An incredible thinker, a hard worker, an excellent and professional servant of the people of South Africa is no more. Our condolences to the family of Dr. Skweyiya, the friends, and the entire democratic movement led by the African National Congress. As the United Democratic Movement, we say, Lala Ngokolo but Zola, Leta Mtagwende. The time had come for you to leave this world. You have run the race and finished the distance. In your professional capacity as the Minister of Public Service and Administration, you were the great architect of the new public administration and a competent man who had been earnest about achieving the goals of a democratic public service. As the Minister of Social Development, you were the driver of its transformation ethos and the social security systems that responded to the millions of the most vulnerable citizenry. Almost 17 million beneficiaries of this system owe their sustenance to you. The nation celebrates the extraordinary life that you led as a remarkable person who devoted your life to peacefully protecting what we can all call our common home and future of South Africa. Your work stands as a testimony to the power of grassroots organizing, that a community should come together inspired by a commitment to democracy, human rights, the eradication of poverty, and civic engagement. Honorable Speaker, Dr. Skweyiya at a global stage pioneered in articulating the link between human rights, poverty, and security. He has further advanced these objectives through his service in our democratic government. You stood tall in all actions and said we must not tire, we must not give up, we must persist. Your legacy will stand as an example to all of us to persist in our pursuit for progress. You have left behind a solid foundation for all of us to build upon. Your history is an inspiring one, and we are all proud to be associated with you and your deeds. Your quality of intellect, passion for justice, and your deep desire for a better, fairer society was shown in everything you did. We have lost an extraordinary activist who showed the skills of leadership and great determination. Your legacy will always remain with us and will hopefully be emulated by all of us. Fare thee well, Leta Mtagwende. You gave a voice to the voiceless. You gave a new meaning to respect for human dignity. Go well, my leader. God bless. I thank you.
The Honorable Kaula.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I stand before you today to express our deepest condolences to the Skweyiya family, relatives and friends, and to the African National Congress family on the passing on of the Honorable Dr. Zola Skweyiya. In the IFP, we say, indeed, Dr. Skweyiya was a perfect gentleman whose life was spent on focusing solely on service to the people. When looking at his biography, I noticed that whilst Dr. Zola Skweyiya had had ample opportunities, but there is nowhere that he was found serving in commercial boards, in the private sector, or any directorship whose objective would have been to make money for himself. For example, he served as the patron-in-chief for Volunteer South Africa. He assisted in setting up the Center for Development Studies at the University of the Western Cape and the South African Legal Defense Fund. He served on the Board of Trustees of the National Commission for the Rights of Children. He served as the chairperson of the United Nations Commission for Social Development. This is a remarkable philanthropic record of a life lived and dedicated to serving the needy. What impresses me the most about the life of Dr. Skweyiya is that he seems to be falling into the same WhatsApp group with my leader in respect of denouncing corruption and walking the talk, in respect of a leadership of integrity integrity and walking the talk. In respect of service to the people and walking the talk. In government, he started in the Ministry of Public Service in 1994 and laid a profound foundation of Bathobele principles to build on. He moved on to the Social Development Department and initiated the most well-received social protection programs for the country. It does not come as a surprise that he added his voice to the veterans who called upon the previous president to retire. Dr. Skweyiya epitomizes the most valuable characteristic of a humble, disciplined public figure, which is a great lesson to the up-and-coming leaders. Once again, allow me to say, rest in peace, Robalaga Khotso Ndate Skweyiya. I thank you.
The Honorable Likota.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was Abraham Lincoln who once observed, quote, that nearly all men can stand adversity. But if you want to test a man's character, give him power. In adversity and in power, as a member of the ANC and Umkhonto weSizwe, in exile, as a negotiator, constitution builder in CODESA, as minister in government and as a diplomat, Dr. Skweyiya remained true to his principles, putting the people first and advocating for social justice and equality. Dr. Skweyiya's character shone during his tenure as our first post-apartheid Minister of Public Administration. For it was under his leadership that the principle of Bathobele was put as a guiding light for those who serve in the leadership of our people. Likewise, as Minister of Social Development, Dr. Skweyiya championed much of our system of social and poverty alleviation systems and mechanisms. Not only did Skweyiya help develop our constitutional order and his vision of a society based on democratic values, social justice and fundamental human rights, but he gave effect thereto. Yes, indeed. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but the test of their character is when they are given power. So on behalf of the Congress of the People, we salute this man of character who dedicated his life to the struggle for democracy, social justice, and a better life for all, and who remained true to his character despite the attainment of power. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
The Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The ACDP was saddened to hear of Dr. Zola Skweyiya's long struggle with illness and sends sincere condolences to his family and colleagues on his recent passing. One of the privileges afforded us on the passing of our colleagues is the opportunity to get to know a little more about the amazing people that we have worked with. Dr. Skweyiya became part of former President Mandela's cabinet in 1994, but my memories of him are from the time he was Minister of Social Development under the presidencies of Thabo Mbeki and Kgalema Motlanthe between 1999 and 2009. As a member of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, tasked with oversight of his department's work, it was an interesting time, especially because oversight was very difficult for most of that period, as the majority in this House felt compelled to just approve and endorse executive decisions. So when it then came what seemed like a rude awakening for many, but in reality a godsend, as the changeover of presidencies opened the South African Parliament to a new era of executive oversight and accountability. Dr. Skweyiya is credited with spearheading the implementation of our social protection system, including the child grants and the formation of the South African Social Security Agency. And this was a huge responsibility and huge accomplishment. The ACDP during his time in office, however, presented a challenge for Minister Skweyiya. I was what you might call a thorn in his flesh, although he might have described me a little less politely. He referred to this on the 6th of November 2007 in the second reading of the Children's Amendment Bill debate, saying the committee tried to reach consensus on the matter of discipline of children, but in the end had to find a workable solution so as to avoid further delays to this amendment bill. He went on to say, honourable members, it is my hope that the clause 139 will be further explored in a less sensational and more progressive manner. In the meantime, we have deleted it from this bill. This, of course, was a disappointment for the minister, but a victory for the ACDP. We admire his willingness to acknowledge the voice of the people when it was clearly difficult for him, saying we also value consensus and grassroots inputs. Consequently, we will endeavour to ensure greater and more meaningful consultations. Honourable Masuta at the time had pointed out to him that there is far too much at stake to let one clause derail this amendment bill. Now, this was courageous at a time when executive decisions did not allow for much discretion, and that they were virtually unchallenged as well. So this bill, in the main, a great achievement, and we commend Dr. Skweyiya on his efforts to provide greater protection of children and to strengthen the important role family plays in society. The ACDP pays deep respect and sincere condolences to his family and friends and to his colleagues. He will be remembered for his outstanding service to his country. Thank you.
The Honourable Nchaisa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And even now for the 4 minutes that have been allocated to us, because I'm used to 3 minutes, maybe I may not go that distance. We as AIC convey our condolences to the family of the late Dr. Zola Skweyiya. The contribution that he made, Dr. Zola Skweyiya, made us now to obtain this freedom and join us today. A man of his caliber, we cherish him. We hope that people like him now will always follow and do the same that Dr. Skweyiya has been doing. The guidance and leadership he showed the time he was Minister of Social Development paved the way. It is because of his passion for the poor, for the adults, and for the disabled that he established the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA. The Child Support Grant is the answer to many of our children. It is because of him again. I believe he could have avoided the mess that was happening in the Department of Social Development if he was a minister again, without casting any aspersions on anyone, perhaps. We hope the teachings and the example will be followed and emulated by us and by our children and the generation to come. He was not power-hungry. Discipline was part of his life. He was very much devoted to the services of the people. We are just celebrating now the life that has been. We hope that his spirit will live on so that many of us and many of our children now will do what this man has been doing for the country. It is pity that the people now have got to be remembered after they have gone to the better world, not telling him or her the actual things, the good that he's doing for the country at the time is still alive. The principle of people first was what he wanted. He was always saying now that people should come first. So if you can just learn from that, when you know exactly that now, we have to start with the people. So it means he was a selfless person, a person devoted, and a person who was prepared to serve his country. So we say as AIC, may his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
The Honorable Chabangu.
Honorable Speaker and Chair of the National Council of Provinces, Chief Commander, protocol observed. EFF is deeply saddened by the departure of Dr. Zola Skweyiya. What saddens us more is not only that he died, but more because he left a legacy so gigantic and so fundamental to the life of a nation that we doubt that there is amongst those who lead us in the ruling party anyone worthy of taking over the spear. Dr. Skweyiya, through his unobtrusive commitment to justice, through his unbending dedication to the upholding of high moral standard for public representative, through his unrehearsed empathy for the poor and the marginalized, through his authentic belief in constitutionalism and the rule of law, he has left us with a shoe too big to be worn by the current generation of public representation. He taught us that the road that upholds high values of morality and ethical values is a very lonely road, but that it is okay to be alone, to be ridiculed, to be persecuted, to be called names, for as long as you believe in your own convictions, of as long as you believe that almost always right always triumphs over wrong, however long it takes. As that great leader for the emancipation of African people in America, Frederick Douglass once noted, I quote, "Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither person nor prosperity will be safe," unquote. Dr. Skweyiya threw himself at the ideal of ensuring a better life for the marginalized, of uprooting poverty, of eradicating ignorance. He did this because he knew that as long as we had people who went to bed without food, as long as we had kids who went to school on empty stomachs, as long as we had the elderly sick and hungry, no one in this country would be guaranteed of their freedom. His understanding of the concept of freedom was ahead of his time. He pioneering work to roll out government grants to all the vulnerable and the needy in this country, in the process, ensuring that over 17 million people have something to eat, is the greatest legacy of the post-1994 administration. Despite the inherent challenges and conceptual problems we may have with social grants at the moment, they are the only difference between life and complete starvation for millions of South Africans. For that, as a nation, we must forever be grateful to Dr. Skweyiya for this. He easily did more than any other minister since 1994 to fight against debilitating effects of poverty. Over and above this, we remember Dr. Skweyiya for his absolute commitment to ethical leadership. He knew, as Frederick Douglass knew, that, I quote, "The life of the nation is secure only while the nation is honest and truthful and vicious," close quote. He remained honest, truthful, and virtuous, while it was not fashionable to be so in the liberation movement he gave his life to. He was one of the first leaders in the ANC to call out Zuma for the crook that he is. Towards the end of his life, he was concerned about the deeply embattled elements of criminality in the ANC led by Zuma and his army of thieves. He never kept his feelings to himself. He spoke out, and for that was ostracized by the gang that was leading the ANC at the time, constituting of Ginger. As the EFF, we appreciate the life of Dr. Skweyiya. We are in awe of his unflinching commitment to the betterment of the lives of our people, and we vote to take up the spear and continue the fight for free South Africa, for equal redistribution of land and resources, for better quality health care. We shall take care of our elderly, the disabled, and vulnerable children. If Dr. Skweyiya was alive, the mayor of Vusi could have not done what he did by beating the members of ANC who outstayed him. Our deepest condolences to the family and friends, to his organization, the ANC, and to the millions of people who were touched by his humility and commitment to the people of this crime. Amandla.
The Honorable Godi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Chairperson of the NCOP, comrades and honorable members. On behalf of the African People's Convention and indeed all Africanists, I wish to express our heartfelt condolences and solidarity with the Skweyiya family and his party. The passing away of Comrade Zola Skweyiya is part of a steady departure of a generation of activists and leaders who were pathfinders in the heightened fight for freedom. A generation that in large measure epitomized principle, thoughtfulness, maturity, and a deep respect for the people. Reflecting on the person that Comrade Skweyiya was, my personal lesson for me and all Africans is the need to embrace thoughtfulness. Deep thought as a basis of our utterances and actions beyond and beside the emptiness and shallowness of militant rhetoric that lacks experience and a sound ideological base. This is what I see when I look around and back to my encounter with him around 1993 at the then Gyan College of Education. Then I was a youthful and exuberant National Secretary for Youth Affairs in the Pan-Africanist Congress, representing it in that two-party debate. I got the rousing applause from the students, but he was calm, matured, and thoughtful. There is a lesson I picked then, which I still carry with me. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
The Honorable Mpambo Sibugwana.
Somlomo walendlu divumele dithi egameni le-Democratic Alliance obekekileyo nongasekhoyo ndimnike imbeko ndinqwale ndithule umnqwazi ndimbonge ndimtyibele uDr. Zola Skweyiya ndivumele ndimbonge ndithi sithi wuntshu kuye ngobomi balendwa lutho uGqirha Skweyiya sithi mazenethole kuye ngokugxothika teziko yaqotsa indlala yathi ngqe kwabaseqatyane kwaxhela kuxokwane kwimizi ngemizi ngoba indlala ihambile ibalekile sithwalandwe esaseka izibonelele kuMzantsi Afrika uphela kwimipha exhutywe yalahlwa yenkonde nenkondikazi zelilo Mzantsi Afrika sabuyela isidima sinyashiwe kwabadala ngenxa kaSoluzembe sabuyela isidima ngenxa yamaxhegwazana anikwe isibonelelo sikarhulumente sibuyela kuwe sibamba ngazo zozibini kuwe Zola Skweyiya kuni bantu bonseZantsi Afrika nakusapho lakwaSkweyiya ngesibinze ngantoni na xa inkedama zingabonelelwa ngesitheni na thina abakhubazekileyo xa bengabonelelwa ndibala ntoni na xa ibathupili principles bezingabonela ntweni ngokuzolileyo uZola ubiwe ngunokufa wavuma kuba umzamo omhle uzamile ugqatso ulufezile wayila iqumrhu likazwelonke lophuhliso NDA ngabula makhumsha asibukhaleli ubomi bakho uyintshatsheli xolani mawethu xa enebe luqaqaqa uSoluzembe phumla tata umdyarho uphumelele zuxelele abaleleyo sisabhuqa udaka eMzantsi zubaziso uCPS neposi zizalicekwa nondize nguwashiywa ukuya ebhantini kweyomsintsi ngabula makhumsha esithi nguSeptember zohlala intsizi zikhongozele ziginye ingwiqi zilindele le esisibonelele xolani Mzantsi Afrika eliqhawe lilwile idabi lenhlupheko yahamba ikati inxelela lekakhetsekile lashenxa namhlanje siyazi xa iqala inyanga ngomhla wokuqala abantu banquma unqumo luka blanket ngoba kaloku yaqalwa nguZola Skweyiya Themba Mqala uzakuginya uyagweka indlala ngenxa kaZola ndivumele somlomo ndimtyibele ndithi zonke inhlanga zonke izizwe uzibophe ngebhanti elinye ulandela umgaqoseko kamasilingane unethamsanqa umhlaba oginye lo mzimba udilikile lo mgodi wawa mkhulu kwiqhawe mawethu awu xolani ke ngoko lusapho lakaSkweyiya kufayayo kakade amagorha nezilumko ngethemba imbewu yehluma ukuba isithodlana siyahluma siyacenkceshela ngokukuko hamba ke Zola hamba Soluzembe hamba uyosikhonzela kwabalela ukuthula hamba Gwiba hamba mthunzi wethu sohlala sikhumbula ngemisebenzi emihle mkhanyisi kwintsunguzi nentsikizi ezimnyama emhlabeni mzisi wethemba kwabanemikhinqi nengevane thuthuzelekani lusapho lakwaSkweyiya noMzantsi Afrika uphela uphumle ngoxolo tata kude kube ngunaphakade wahlala uthe tha ezingqondweni zethu siulandela umgomo wakho maxa wonke masingaqumbi ke siqalekise mawethu masiwazi into kuba uyosikhonzela kwabalela ukuthula Soluzembe sihamba lendlela sonke akuhlanga lungehliyo mawethu
The Honorable Ngakula.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members of this joint sitting, allow me right at the outset to register appreciation that our Parliament continues to create space for us, to remember those who once upon a time were part of Parliament, and for you creating an opportunity for us to continue to pay homage to them. My take in the tribute to Comrade Zola Skweyiya take its cue from what happened when Comrade Nosiviwe and I visited him in hospital when he was in ICU about 6 weeks before his death. He had been ill for quite some time and therefore was at intensive care. When we arrived at his bedside, he was asleep, but then he woke up and raised himself on his bed and started pumping us with political questions and discussing issues he had always been raising with respect to his beloved organization, the African National Congress. I am not going to raise those matters. The leadership of the ANC knows about them. Many of them are in the public domain. I want, though, to apologize to Comrade Zola, even at this late stage, that some members of the ANC defined him and other veterans of our struggle as, open quotes, so-called veterans, close quotes, and open quotes, empty teens, close quotes. Those who have been in the ANC for a long time know, Comrade Zola, that your fight was against the defiling of the values of the African National Congress by some of the movement's members. And they would have been surprised had you not raised your concerns when the policies of your movement were being violated willy-nilly, without any intervention by the senior cadreship. Comrade Zola was a committed member of Umkhonto weSizwe and fully understood and subscribed to MK's military code, which, among other things, raised the following, quote, by joining Umkhonto, combatants commit themselves to the solemn and noble duty of serving our suffering and dispossessed people, and the struggle that will continue for each and all of us until victory or death, unquote. He correctly defined corruption as theft of resources meant for, open quotes, our suffering and dispossessed people, close quotes. I met Comrade Zola for the first time in 1959 when I was admitted to the Lovedale Missionary Institution. He was already what was called at the time an old comer, and I was a newcomer. I came into contact with his politics when I was recruited into the ranks of the African Students Association, which was formed by the ANC. Comrade Zola became our branch chairperson. It was in that position that he showed his leadership and very good listening skills. He was able carefully and correctly to read political developments in our country and abroad. His analytic prowess was amazing. It was only later that I learned what had shaped his politics. He was recruited in 1956 into the ANC Youth League at the age of 14, having been born on 14 April 1942 at Simonstown, just a short drive from here. He was drawn quite early in his life into the hairy belly of South Africa's politics during the period that activists of the time called the Roaring 50s. He came into contact with many leading figures in the liberation struggle in the Western Cape, where revolutionary activism was very high. There are many volunteers he interacted with who had participated in the defiance campaign against unjust laws in 1952. He met and was influenced by the various ANC and Communist Party activists. He was familiar with the founding Congress on 5 March 1955 of the South African Congress of Trade Unions and of the holding of the Congress of the People in June the same year. He had access to the various documents circulated within the ranks of the Congress movement and was thoroughly schooled in the politics of the struggle for liberation. In June 1959, Verwoerd's government passed the Extension of University Education Act, which defined tertiary institutions into entities which were separated into separate segments for whites, Africans, coloreds, and Indians. The Africans were separated along ethnic lines, Forte being reserved for Xhosas, Ongoye became a university for Zulus, the Sothos and Tswanas were bundled off to Turfloop. The white students, of course, were accommodated in the best resourced universities. The students across the country were not going to take the new apartheid measure without a fight. Comrade Zola participated in a number of meetings where plans were articulated to oppose the act. Demonstrations were launched countrywide, but the system, of course, resorted to its violent nature. Some students were expelled from Forte, and the security forces laid siege to Alice and its environs. Security personnel armed with Sten guns and ensconced in armored personal carriers became a common sight. Comrade Zola was still at Lovedale when the ANC and other political organizations were banned by the racist regime, and Umkhonto Wesizwe was formed. He became part of the original contingent of cadres who were recruited to MK. The next time I met him, it was at Kabwe, a small town north of Lusaka in Zambia. He was a delegate at the ANC's second consultative conference held in that town. At the time of the conference, he had been redeployed to Lusaka by the president of the ANC, Oliver Reginald Tambo, who wanted him to set up the Department of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Comrade Zola, like any trained soldier, wanted to be part of the Wangi and Spolilo campaigns in 1967 and 1968. Comrade OR, however, had other tasks for him and had him sent to Germany in 1968 to do law at the University of Leipzig, where he graduated with a Doctor of Laws degree in 1978. He started building the NC's legal section and recruited as part of his team Penuel Maduna, Ntozinhle Jobodwana, and Teddy Pekane, but expanded it later to include Bridget Mabandla, Matthew Sposa, and Sandile Nogxina. That team of ANC lawyers drafted in 1988 a document of constitutional guidelines for a democratic South Africa, many of whose elements were incorporated into the current South African Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Comrade Zola, during his tenure as a member of the cabinets of former President Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki, argued strongly that the democratic government had an obligation to adhere tenaciously to the project to create conditions for a better life for all South Africans. His commitment to poverty alleviation was legendary. A social grant system was one of the instruments that he piloted to deal with poverty. He argued, however, that the social grant would not resolve on its own the plight of the poor. He suggested a multiple approach that would include land ownership by black people, meaning Africans, coloreds, and Indians. Among other things, the new landowners would use that land for food security. Comrade Zola continued to insist when cabinet discussions happened on a new system of spatial planning, that black land ownership had to be integral to land use management. And the Honorable Likota knows about this. He was part of the cabinet at the time. But despite many resolutions taken from its various platforms on the question of land, the ANC has been quite tardy in the implementation of such decisions. One of the clearest comments by the ANC on the matter of land ownership was a resolution taken at its 1923 conference. That conference happened 10 years after the passing of the Natives Land Act of 1913, which Saul Plaatje, the ANC's Secretary General at the time, contextualized as follows, quote, "Awaking on Friday morning, June 20, 1913, the South African native found himself not actually a slave, but a pariah in the land of his birth," unquote. The ANC's 1923 resolution made it clear that, quote, "all Africans have, as the sons of this soil, the God-given right to unrestricted ownership of the land in this, the land of their birth," unquote. In his address in January, at the commemoration of the ANC's 106th anniversary, the organization's president, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, told his audience, open quotes, "The 54th conference in December 2017 decided that the historic injustice of land dispossession needs to be addressed with greater urgency. There was overwhelming support that the ANC must pursue the expropriation of land without compensation," close quotes. That question is now before Parliament, having been piloted by the EFF, whose motion received majority support in the National Assembly. Comrade Zola would have been very happy about this development. He was critically ill when the motion was adopted. In his memory, let us process quickly the passing of the relevant legislation. Honorable Malema, I can imagine a situation where you would have gone somewhere to say the following: "Mama, we gave the ANC a signal, but Mama, we don't know what to do with the DA. Mama, give us a signal." We further need to reconstruct. I'm using that word advisedly, reconstruct, not restructure. We further need to reconstruct our public service to produce a contingent of workers that will become the prime instrument for a better system of service delivery, in the best interests of the concept of Batupili. That was one of Comrade Zola's wishes en route to a better life for all our people, black and white. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, the presiding officers of Parliament associate themselves with the sentiments expressed by the members in the debate. Will we please rise to observe a moment of silence with the in memory of Dr. Skweyiya. Thank you. We will now proceed with the tributes in respect of Ms. Madikizela Mandela, and I believe Honorable Chairperson of the Council, of the National Council of Provinces, will be the first speaker in this section.
Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable members, my respects go to the Madikizela Mandela family. My respects go to the Skweyiya Mazibuko family. Members, we are gathered here today to remember two illustrious members of this House who were members since 1994. We also gather here to remember one, Winifred Nomzamo Nobandla Zanyiwe Madikizela Mandela, who is no more. On her 80th birthday, then Deputy President Ramaphosa said, and I quote, "Mama Winnie lived a rich and eventful life, whose setbacks and victories have traced the progress of the struggle of our people for freedom." Mama Winnie was a towering figure of our lifetime, a pivotal woman in our history, a notable presence at the world, whether you liked her or you hated her. And it is right today that we stand here and we remember this daughter of South Africa and the world. For the Deputy President was right. Her life, the trials and tribulations, the few moments of joy, tracks what we went through as a nation of South Africa. Whether you liked her or not, you can never run away from the fact that Winnie Madikizela Mandela lived. She lived a life of scorn, but she was loved and revered by those who were oppressed. She lived a life none of us in this house would want to live, but she towered, she laughed, she was ebullient. She walked and she worked. She spoke and she listened. She was amongst us, she was with us. She laughed with us, she cried with us. You may hate her, the people who met her in the history against apartheid in this country will always want to be associated with one Winifred Madikizela Mandela. We have noted, and some of us are still reeling from the shock of her passing, the Africans in the diaspora have not been quiet. Harlem broke into song in memory of Winifred Mandela. The United Nations hosted a memorial service in memory of this daughter of South Africa. My colleagues in Ghana and Nigeria tell me there were memorial services for Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Closer home here, in SADC, we remembered this woman. We remembered her proudly. We acknowledged that as she walked, as she cried, as she stared at her enemies, so did those of us who were cowering behind her skirts stand up and straightened our back and took up what we needed to take up to continue the fight. Speaker, we have observed the 10 days of mourning as a country. Our flags were at half-mast, not hesitant, not bowed, at half-mast because we were honoring one of our own. Not ashamed, not hiding, at half-mast because the mother of the nation had passed on. We do know, and we continue to note the insults. We continue to note that the remnants of the apartheid system have failed to accept the wrongs that they have heaped on Nomzamo, the daughter of Madikizela. We shall not forget. Our revenge will be the credits in our hearts of what she contributed to. In the history books, in the memories of our great-grandchildren, in the descendants of the African child, shall we continue to remember this great daughter of South Africa. We who bore children to be raised by others in our absence, we understood where Winnie was come from. We who felt the pain, we understood Winnie Mandela. We who were stripped naked to be paraded, we understood Winnie Mandela. We who lived and got married and lived without husbands, we understood the pain of Winnie Mandela. We who had nothing, we who were dispossessed of our land, we who cried day and night and could not explain, we understood the humiliation and the pain of this woman. And we are not ashamed to be associated with this name. So Nomzamo Zanyiwe will remain in our memory. We will remain as the extraordinary voice that was urging my generation to fight against a system of apartheid which bonded us into the kitchens and the backyards. We remain the invaluable contribution of this one who was brave at great, great personal cost. Like Deborah in the Bible, was just a woman. But when the challenges came and the war broke, she took the reins of leadership, even though our children in the streets of Soweto were outnumbered by the Caspers and the bullets and the guns and the tear gas. Like Deborah in the Bible, Winnie Mandela stood steadfast and committed. Her dedication to the struggle against apartheid and patriarchy has always been unshakable. She became the face and the voice of the voiceless. She hated and she fought against racism, against patriarchy, against domestic violence, against gender-based violence. She hated poverty, and that is why she actually never made money. She got donations. They went out, divided into little groups of people so that they could survive. She, who was trained as a professional social worker, did not, even when she could have appealed and taken up a job, she did not work in the profession. She became the organic one out there. She sat with widows. She sat with orphans. She bathed those who needed to be bathed when we started experiencing the scourge of HIV and AIDS. She stood courageously as a wife when her husband was incarcerated. She stood, she did everything that Umakoti Wabatembu was supposed to do. She kept the home fires burning. She raised the children. And as we celebrate Masul, as we celebrate Umadiba this year, we must also celebrate that woman who kept the name of Nelson Mandela in our hearts and in our minds for more than 30 years. We must celebrate this woman who became the face of the South African struggle for equal education when she was a graduate. We must remember the little contribution she made. And I'm saying little, because when you are looking from outside, it looks little. When you have been inside, it is huge. So how do we describe this Mpondagazi? How do you disassociate any daughter Yamambondo from the fight for land? How do you look at this beautiful, courageous, challenging, loyal, and passionate woman? How do you describe this inspiration of my generation? This home builder who fought ferociously to keep her people together? How do you explain this woman who touched the hearts of all the oppressed across the nation? We still contest that she was a mother, not only to her biological children, but to some of us, to all of us, to even those who were older than her. So I think we should honor Winnie. We should walk the talk. We should not just compose new songs. They go with memory. With time, they lose the meaning in words. We should memorialize Winnie in the memories of those who are yet to be born. We should contribute to Winnie's name being kept alive by going back to strengthening the women's movement of South Africa. I have, in recent past, not heard about a meeting that between the women of the PAC and the women of the ANC as we used to have. I have not heard of these two liberation movements remembering, rejoining, having a common project. I have seen Winnie shed tears for little children because she was worried of what their futures were going to be. But I have also seen Winnie consoling all of us to hide her own pain. Because sometimes when we fight, we forget the person in front of us. Sometimes when we hurt even the person we are supposed to protect. And for me, Comrade Winnie was one such victim. We are happy that the truth has come out. We will be even happier if more truth comes out. We will be happy if this woman is given her place in history. When you build statues of liberators, perhaps you will remember to build the statue of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Not because she was a wife to Nelson Mandela, but because she was a fighter, but because she stood up when some hid, but because she stood up and said what sometimes we were too scared to say, but also because she did not fight just for the people who carried the black, green, and gold. She fought, she died fighting, agonizing about the people of South Africa and the poor worldwide. She died worried about identities. She died worried about the dispossessed who were still struggling to get back. She died worried about the South African black children who have mental health challenges. Because thina ke abantu abamnyama sivela siba dismiss bayahlanya, that's their business. That was the last thing that Mam Winnie wanted to take on very seriously. Access to medication, access to counseling. Where are we, mothers of the nation? So ke batla gore no monument will contain the colossus called Winnie Mandela. No monument will contain the beautiful soul that was Winnie Mandela. She was not perfect. She was simply our mother. She did not pretend to be perfect. She had a hell of a temper. She had a hell of an effective laughter. She loved people. She was loved. May we keep her memory. May we treasure her. May we thank Nina Bakamadigizela, Nina Bakamandela, for giving us this sacrificial lamb, this woman who, even in death, was still being reviled, this woman who gave us everything, this woman who would not hesitate to speak out. Let us remember her, as I said, not in cheap songs, but in deeds. Let us remember her in those childcare facilities which suddenly we have stopped as civil society to build on our own. Let us remember her in practicing the respect that she had towards anybody older than herself. When she called men botata, it wasn't because she thought they were superior to her or older than her sometimes. It was simply a form of respect. And respect is something that I think we are missing these days. So for me, it is malibongwe igama lamakhosikazi.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Malibongwe kube njalo.
Honorable Mutau.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honorable members, today is World Press Freedom Day, and as we remember Winnie Madikizela Mandela, I'm sure most of you will agree that the press, which we now call the media, were right there every step of the way with Winnie Madikizela Mandela. So as we say to the men and women of the press, we appreciate what you do. We also say to you, we appreciate what you did in the past. Honorable Deputy Speaker, volumes have been written, screened, and spoken about Winnie Madikizela Mandela over the years, and more extensively during the past few weeks since she passed away. And you would wonder, what more can be said about this woman? And that's the question I had to grapple with. However, I believe that each one of us will forever carry their own memories and reflections of this remarkable South African who, until not so long ago, loomed large in our lives. Therefore, I would like to share with you two of my own memories of the activist Winnie Mandela I grew to know. There are many other memories I have, but these two stand out, and I hope you will appreciate what I mean as I go along. My first close encounter with Winnie Mandela, and I say Winnie Mandela deliberately because that's how the world knew her. That's how the children at Atteridgeville knew her. In this country at that time, when you said Winnie, they didn't ask you Winnie Kimang. They knew Khuru Winnie Kimang. There was just one Winnie. So as I say that, I say it with the fullest respect to this woman. It was on the 6th of April, 1979, and I'm sure many of you will remember this date because it reverberates with us. While I was a senior journalist on the Pretoria News, I used to cover education, labor, and politics. This was the day, as many of you will remember, that young Solomon Mahlangu was executed by hanging at the gallows in Pretoria and was later buried at the Mamelodi Cemetery. Now, here's the rub. We were given the runaround by the security branch then because they didn't want the media to know where this young man was going to be buried. But we knew he was going to go to Mamelodi because that's where they interned people who were executed. Fortunately, coming out of Atteridgeville, I left a message out there because they had said that he would be buried in Atteridgeville. I left a message and I went to Mamelodi. And indeed, as it turned out, he was, Solomon Mahlangu was buried in Mamelodi. And guess who was there? Winnie Mandela. She defied her banning orders. She went to Mamelodi. She got to the Mamelodi cemetery and thereafter to this, the HM Pitcher Stadium where she addressed the people. We were there. We saw this happen. The second time I had a close encounter with Winnie was around the beginning of December 1985. This would be about the 3rd or 4th. Also in Mamelodi, at the funeral of 12 Mamelodi residents who had been killed by the police during a protest march on the 21st of November 1985. In fact, on that day, 13 people were mowed down. And after this funeral service, as you can imagine, people in Mamelodi were up in arms. They wanted to go to the mayor. They wanted to go everybody, kill everybody, do something. Our people are gone. And would you believe it? It was Winnie Mandela who said to the people, that's not how we do it. Let us pray and then go home. I have in my hand here the article that we produced at the Pretoria News on that day. Winnie Mandela comes mourn us. I, together with 3 of my colleagues, wrote the story. I mention this so that I can contextualize what I would like to say about Winnie Madikizela Mandela. That was the Winnie Mandela who inspired the oration from the heart that you will soon hear. It's called Nomzamo. You are the first people to hear these personal reflections, which I now share with you as a tribute to Winnie Madikizela Mandela. This is the tribute. It is simply styled Nomzamo. Amandla. The salute rose for you, O Lady Elephant, you of the prophetic name Nomzamo Mandela, great mother among true mothers of Africa, fearless women who grasp the knife by the blade. Adversity fuels your indomitable spirit. Your struggle for freedom knows no limit. Innocent and free, you blushed in matrimonial bliss. Tears of joy turned to heart-breaking weeping. They wrenched your love from your loving arms, father of your children and leader of his people. They branded him member of a seditious terrorist band. They shipped him off to remote, heartless Robben Island. Alone and afraid, you sobbed and drooped in dusty Soweto, bride without a groom, wife without a husband, both mother and father to Zenani and Zinzi, the gods of Mandela and Madikizela watched you cry. They touched your brow and brought life to your heavy heart. They stoked fire into the cold ashes in your cheerless hearth. Bewildered shadow of a revered Nelson Mandela, fearful girl blossomed into woman brave and strong. His jailers fumed as they watched your stature grow. They did their worst to break your body and soul. Orlando turned to prison home as Ben followed Ben. Baron Brentford was Siberia, banished to the Bundu. You shook the sleepy backward Dorpy rudely awake. Your presence inspired pride in your people there. Threats of death followed prison and isolation. Unsatisfied, they firebombed prison home to ash. Living symbol of African motherhood and survival, you inspire hope and dedication to national revival. Your courage is surpassed only by your modesty. You of the regal bearing and big African eyes, they maligned and smeared your respected name. They cast aspersions on your moral character. Your name remains intact and untarnished. Malicious fabrications by your people banished. Cursed to a weird world of arbitrary silence, your precious words permeate the eerie quiet. You hold the torch of truth and freedom aloft. You dare not waver, you cannot falter. Protracted trials and tribulations of today are sure to bring peace to all another day. All of you sitting in this auditorium bear truth to this truth about bringing peace to all another day. Goba ga Mandela, le ba Matikizela, rena re le ba Democratic Alliance re re, go motsegang, se se sa fele go se a tlhola, le a lena matlhoko a tla fela. Ke a leboga.
Thank you, Honorable Tendegwa.
The Deputy Speaker, the Chairperson of National Council of Provinces, the President and Commander-in-Chief of EFF, the Deputy President of EFF, SG and DSG of EFF and public representatives of EFF, members of both Parliament, families of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and special acknowledgement of the presence of Zinzi Mandela here today, including the families of Zola, Dr. Zola Skweyiya and other guests present. We are here to pay tribute to Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and we do so with a great smile, because she lived and fought relentlessly to restore the dignity of Black people of South Africa. And through her bravery, she has inspired many generations of red roses, beautiful sons and daughters of Africa, who will continue the fight for the only freedom, the true freedom, the freedom of economic emancipation of our lifetime. We are here to pay tribute to Mama Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and we do so with true love, because she loved us wholeheartedly, all the time and unconditionally too. And through her gentle warmth, she has taught us to truly love ourselves, love for other Black people, to break a generational curse of self-hate. We are here to pay tribute to Winnie Mandela, and we do so because of her greatest personal sacrifice, a sacrifice of everything that is good, including raising her own children. And through her sacrifice, our people are liberated from shackles of racist apartheid regime. And we now have the political freedom to pursue economic emancipation. She lived all her life with the people, never separated from her people, and faced all their challenges at the forefront as a tried and tested activist. That is why she is the mother of our nation, not only in South Africa, but across the continent and the rest of the world. Unlike many who are here, who have forgotten where they come from and do not support legislation that seeks betterment of all Black people, she never sold out. We still pay tribute to Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela because we know her worth, and we are happy her name will be written in the eternal book of life, the book of all who died for the betterment of all Black people. When we formed the EFF, she encouraged us, she gave us guidance, listened to us, and shared her lived experience. So, we proudly and unashamedly associate her and what she stood for, and we paid tribute to her when she was still alive. People of Soweto and Winnie Mandela squatter camp, people who met her most, paid tribute to her when she was alive. In her passing, Winnie Mandela is resting in perfect revolutionary peace. Mama Winnie Mandela was a practical person who offered practical solutions to the communities in dire need at all times. During her banishment in Brantford, she established a clinic and a food garden. We have lost a heroine. We have lost a liberator. We have lost a courageous fighter. Oh, what a struggle. What an iconic personality. What a strength in the face of oppression. What a strength in isolation and evil. Oh, what a life. For as long as we carry the spear and continue to fight for the expropriation of land without compensation, nationalization of mines and banks, free education, and economic freedom in our lifetime as our generational mission, she will continue to rest in perfect revolutionary peace. As EFF, we reiterate the call to the ANC-led government to change the name of Cape Town International Airport to Nomzamo Winifred Madikizela Mandela International Airport. May Mama Winnie, Winfred Madikizela Mandela's soul rest in peace. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Naren Singh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, honorable members. Speaking at the memorial service of Ma Winnie Madikizela Mandela, my leader, the Honorable Prince Buthelezi, said, and I quote, "A tree has fallen and our nation mourns," close quote. Deputy Speaker, in the hours following the news of Mama Madikizela Mandela's passing on Monday, the 2nd of April, tributes flowed from all parts of the world, remembering her enormous contribution to the liberation of our country. The IFP was honored to add its voice to this chorus of admiration, for there are few who sacrifice so much for the sake of our nation. Mama Mandela was veritably defined by her courage and resilience. She was not merely the wife of Nelson Mandela. She was a freedom fighter in her own right, with strong convictions that she voiced fearlessly, as we've heard from speakers before me. She lived to serve her country and maintained her course even when times were at the darkest and she was persecuted, even on occasions even at the hands of fellow freedom fighters. In her book, 491 Days, Mrs. Madikizela Mandela wrote about my leader, Prince Buthelezi, and I want to quote. She says, "Buthelezi was going to use Inkatha to fight apartheid from within. He was one of the greatest fighters in his day, and he was entrusted from fighting the system from within. And that is what people do not know," close quote. Honorable Deputy Speaker, like Honorable Buthelezi, Mrs. Winnie Madikizela Mandela fought on and never wavered in the struggle for a democratic and free South Africa. It is therefore greatly fitting that Mrs. Winnie Madikizela Mandela was among the fortunate ones of our generation to witness the sunrise of liberation and the genesis of democracy in our land. Even then, her struggle did not stop, for she understood, as we all did, that the wrongs of the past could only be set right through continued hard work. Deputy Speaker, yes, a tree has fallen, but its fruit is not scattered. We are planted together, and together we will grow. This will be her legacy. On behalf of my leader, the Honorable Buthelezi, and the Inkatha Freedom Party, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the family of Ma Madikizela Mandela. We cannot imagine your heartache, and we pray that the Lord will comfort and heal you at this time of great sorrow and mourning. May the soul of Nomzamo Winifred Madikizela Mandela rest in peace. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Members of the Executive, members of the NCOP, the National Assembly, the Winnie Mandela family, including the Skweyiya family, and honorable members of this House. Allow me to start off on behalf of my leader, VZ Magwaza Msibi, and the National Freedom Party to extend our condolences to the Mandela family, and including the Skweyiya families. Now, Honorable Chair, we are gathered here today to pay tribute to the mother of our nation, the late Winnie Madikizela Mandela, a freedom fighter, struggle icon, selfless humanitarian, a grandmother, a mother not only to her children, but the nation at large. We've heard the President of the country, the Deputy President, member after member in the memorial services at the funeral, including our Honorable Malema, who normally fights the ANC, had only good words to say about our mother of the nation, Honorable Madikizela Mandela. It clearly indicates the role that the mother of this nation has played in South Africa and in the liberation of our people. And very importantly, the role that she played in liberating the woman in South Africa. And I think we all are aware for decades, women in South Africa have always been marginalized. And I think she started this fight. At the age of 9, she experienced the first state of oppression or injustice of racism when she was forced to wait outside at the end of the Second World War celebration as it was meant for whites only. So it clearly means that at the age of 9 years, it had an effect on her, and that's basically what changed the mother of our nation. Honorable Chair, she was a social worker with par excellence. She served the people, she went out of her way, she identified the challenges, and she fought that to ensure that we improve the quality of life of our people on the ground. She was abused, she was assaulted, she was banished. There were harassment by the police, raids, doors being broken into, turning the house upside down. Nothing deterred this mother of the nation from continuing the struggle to liberate our people in South Africa. She was at the forefront from that time until her demise. Her first taste of prison life and its horrid conditions was in October 1958 in Johannesburg, after the march against the oppressed pass laws, and she was pregnant at that time. Her life was made a living hell. Even her children, Zenani and Zindiswa, bore the brunt of this oppressive apartheid regime, being expelled from different schools at different times. That did not stop them. When the Honorable former President was in prison, she fought the fight till the bitter end. At no time did she stop. Despite the dirty tricks campaign by the apartheid regime, in collusion with the media at the time, and now we know the truth of exactly what has happened, she did not stop. Honorable Chairperson or Deputy Speaker, it is only appropriate to acknowledge her role in the liberation of people during her lifetime. We've never done that, but it's never too late. As the National Freedom Party, we are calling for a plaque to be put at this precinct of Parliament to honor Winnie Madikizela Mandela. This has never happened where a woman's statue appears anywhere in South Africa, in my view. It must be done here. It's the way we can pay tribute to her. And if we cannot put it next to the Honorable Madiba, then I'm suggesting, Honorable Deputy Speaker, let's remove the oppressed one and put her there. That is the person that rightfully deserves to be here, so when people come from around the world, including us, we can acknowledge the role that she has played.
Thank you.
Our condolences to the family, the children, and all the African National Congress and everyone connected to her. Thank you very much.
Kwankwa. Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, fellow South Africans. A big tree and outstanding servant of the people, a struggle icon has fallen. Dr. Maya Angelou, in a poem, The Great Tree Has Fallen, says, and I quote, "When great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always regularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed, we can be and be better, for they existed." As we mourn and are still trying to come to terms with the untimely death of Mama Winnie, no one can deny the fact that our lives are better because she existed. Mama was a fearless freedom fighter who brought her superlative courage to the struggle during the darkest hours of oppression. She was a colossus that bestrode the lives of the poor and downtrodden, shielding them from the vicious onslaught of the apartheid regime. It was therefore not surprising that South Africans, after her passing, who understand the passage of the struggle for freedom, regarded her with veneration. It is because these South Africans understand that both in the war against the apartheid regime and in peace, Mama Winnie served South Africa unfailingly and wholeheartedly for decades. For these reasons, it was also not surprising that when Mama Winnie passed away, the world rang with tributes to this great leader of our time. We were, however, flabbergasted by the ostentatious vulgarity of the criticisms of her legacy by some of her detractors and the brazen lies they told to tarnish her image. Despite their venomous attacks, our love and respect for her remains undiminished. Disappointingly, even the behavior displayed by those of us who tried to defend her legacy was at times marked by puerility. This group displayed an exclusive notion to national interest or the right to defend the legacy, which was extremely intolerant of dissenting views, whether valid or not. To reduce her legacy to her mistakes understands neither the dangers of the struggle for freedom nor the monumental sacrifices on which our pedestal of hope is premised. Fellow South Africans, it would be a saddest irony of history and a damning indictment of our leadership if we were to allow or use Mama Winnie's passing to divide the very same nation she fought tooth and nail to unite. In this regard, we owe it to the youth of this country and future generations to tell an objective account of Mama Winnie's contribution to our struggle for liberation that is free of distortions. Madam Speaker, throughout our struggle for freedom, Mama Winnie was sustained not only by her love for our people, but by her sincerity and commitment towards building a democratic, united, non-racial, and non-sexist South Africa. In your honor, Mama, will continue to fight for the improvement of the lives of the poor and to ensure that land is returned back to our people. We will not let your passing as our struggle icons to be the end of an era of South African greatness. We will continue to individually and collectively work towards building a South Africa in which we all look forward to the sunrise of our tomorrow. Menze Thixo umama aphumle ngonaphakade umkhanyisele ngokhanyiso olungacimiyo. Lala ngoxolo mama, siyabulela.
Honorable Matebula.
na khensa mutshamaxitulu, na khensa ndyangu wa ka Mandela, na khensa ndyangu wa ka Skweyiya, ni xeweta na Commander-in-Chief Silo Julius Malema. Karabo Mokoena, ex-boyfriend, was just found guilty of murdering her in the South Gauteng High Court. Yesterday, a young female student was shot and killed by her boyfriend in Mangosuthu University of Technology, simply because he wanted to break up with him. Yesterday, a young female student at Tshwane University of Technology was stabbed and nearly raped by a man on a campus. While we are paying tribute to Mama Winnie Mandela, we are all aware that patriarchy, gender-based violence remain the reality in the politics and everywhere else in South Africa. Mama Winnie's suffering then was symbolic of the pain, suffering, and abuse women experience every day at the hands of South African men. What an apartheid government did to Mama Winnie because of her political ideas, gender, and conviction is what men continue to do to us today in this country. When we say no, when we say yes, and when we say anything at all. South African women every day in their homes, at work, at school, in taxi ranks, at malls, and anywhere in this country are generally just not safe. For Mama Winnie to pass while men are at war with South African women is shameful, and we must all be embarrassed. Paying tribute to Mama Winnie Mandela, we must recommit to reverse the scourge of violence against our women. In paying tribute to Mama Winnie, we must all recommit to equal pay of men and women. We must all recommit to ensuring that young women do not get removed from school simply because they are pregnant. There's a great deal of work that still needs to be done and prevent brutal murder, abuse, rape, and discrimination against women. We must recommit to build capacity within our police service for them to be able to follow up all cases to gender-based violence, whether they are popular or not. We must recommit to building justice system that has the capacity and willingness to prosecute men who engage in gender-based violence. We must recommit to improve the accessibility of reproductive health, including access to sanitary pads. At the center of our recommitment to all challenges facing women, we must all be ensured that the land, when it's taken without compensation, it is given first to women. Mama Winnie Mandela will continue to rest in revolutionary peace when women own the land. When women work the land they own. When women feed the nation from their own hands. When women build places of worship in their own land. When women build businesses in their own land. Mama Winnie Mandela will smile down on us as she rests in revolutionary peace when this day happens. And the greatest tribute we can make to Mama Winnie Mandela is to ensuring that the Cape Town International Airport must be named as the Winnie Wilfred Mandela Mandela International Airport. Etlela hi kurhula Mama Winnie wa rixaka. Etlela hi kurhula muyimeri wa vasati va ntiyiso. Etlela hi kurhula Mama Winnie Nozama Madikizela Mandela. Inkomo.
Honorable Mulder.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker. There's a famous old Native American proverb that says the following, and I quote, it says, "When you are born, you cry, and the world rejoices. But when you die, you rejoice, and the world cries." Today is an opportunity for us to pay tribute to one of our colleagues, the Honorable Winnie Mandela, who was a member of this House. She became a member of Parliament in 1994, and she served as a member of this House until her death recently. Winnie is gebore in 26 September 1936 in die Oos-Kaap, Bizana, waar haar wortels is en waarvandaan sy gekom het. And many people have spoken about the trials and tribulations of her life and the things that she went through. But in practical terms, she became the face, I remember very well, she became the face and the rally point for the then Free Mandela campaign. And I remember it very well. And I remember in 1990, she was the one that walked out of Victor Verster prison with President Mandela. And that vision, that what we saw on television, I think people will remember forever. She had the privilege and the honor to be with President Mandela there because she became the rally point around her for the Free Mandela campaign. She became a member of parliament and she served here in our parliament for many years. Maybe some of us forgot, but she was appointed as a Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture in the first cabinet. And earlier today, we paid tribute to Honorable Dr. Zola Skweyiya. And I remember that those members of the ANC that came, I sometimes refer to them as the A-team. They were the first ones that came. They were the first senior membership of the ANC that served and took the initiative after 1994. She remained a member until her death recently and was part of that small group of members of parliament that has been here since 1994. During the trials and the tribulations and the struggle that she put out there, and members refer to that, obviously she became the victim of a retaliatory process. And it was in the media the last couple of weeks and it was discussed there. Van ons collega's vandag het dit nodig geag, en dit is nie my manier van doen nie, om te probeer om Winnie te gebruik om sekere politieke punte te maak. En ek verstaan dit. Ek wil nie daar gaan nie. Ek dink dit is baie belangriker eerder om te kyk na die persoon, na die mens, as individu en die stryd wat sy as 'n persoon, as 'n ma, as 'n eggenoot, as 'n ouma gehad het in daardie tyd. En dan is dit belangrik om jou altyd te plaas in 'n ander se posisie. Draai net die rol om. Dink hoe dit was, as dit jy was, in terme van jou man is sopas lewenslang tronk toegestuur, en dit gaan nie oor die feite, maak nie saak hier nie, dit is wat sopas gebeur het. Hoe raak dit jou? Jou hele lewe word omvergegooi, jy het kinders, en wat word van jou situasie vorentoe? En ek dink dit is belangrik dat mens moet kennis daarvan neem dat Winnie se geestelike krag onder permanente polisie tuistering en brutaliteit moet by almal respek afdwing. Pascal Amshay se rolprent onlangs Winnie handel hieroor, maar ook oor baie kritiek wat teen haar uit ANC-geleedere intern gekom het. Hierdie rolprent is herhaaldelik na haar dood op televisie gewys, en die rolprent gee haar standpunte weer en bring enkel nuwe feite na vore, maar is sekerlik nie die finale gebalanseerde beoordeling van haar lewe nie. Natuurlik was sy 'n omstrede figuur, en sy het omstrede standpunte gehuldig. Maar vandag is nie die geleentheid om daaroor 'n debat te voer nie. There's a quote that says, "Death is more universal than life. Everyone dies, but not everyone lives." Winnie Mandela lived. She had a full life. En of jy met haar saamgestem het of nie, jy moet daardie werklikheid verreken, sy het 'n vol lewe gehad en 'n rol gespeel in Suid-Afrika. I would like, on behalf of the Freedom Front Plus, express our sincere condolences to the ANC that lost a colleague. But today it's not about political parties. It's about the family who lost a mother, who lost a grandmother, and we would like to express our condolences, and we understand the difficult situation that you go through. Thank you very much.
Honorable Lekota.
Deputy Speaker, in life and in death, Comrade Winnie Mandela has been admired and venerated, denounced and vilified. More recently, the past has been revisited and history contended. New narratives have been posited, persons and institutions smeared, with or without foundation or fact, perhaps to advance partisan and populist interests. There have been disputes over what she stood for, and even contestations over the ownership of her legacy. But that is as it should have been, for as the late Madiba observed on a number of occasions, only those who are busy doing nothing do not make mistakes. So somewhere among the cacophony of noise and rhetoric, smoke and mirrors, and narrow interests, lies the truth in its nakedness, brutal nakedness. So the Congress of the People pays tribute to one who's left our numbers, to the role played and the untold sacrifices she made in the resistance against apartheid and in the struggle for our liberation. We acknowledge the incomprehensible pain, suffering, and anguish that she endured alongside our oppressed and defenseless people. And so, as we look to her family and others, we extend our gratitude and our sympathies to the family. May God grant her soul peace in her rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Misha.
Deputy Speaker, the ACDP joins millions of South Africans in paying tribute to our former Member of Parliament, the late Winnie Madikizela Mandela. We will always remember Mama Winnie for her strong convictions and courage. She had the courage to speak truth to power and was not intimidated by the apartheid government security agents. She also stood by her convictions and spoke her mind even in the most trying of times, sometimes at great cost. Her courage enabled her to stand in the face of persecution and imprisonment and to speak out in defense of the poor and her husband, the late former President Mandela, when he was incarcerated. Despite her shortcomings and mistakes, which we all have, her courage made her one of the leading struggle icons that we will remember for years to come. When former Police Commissioner George Fivers was interviewed recently by ENCA's Claudine Ngambi, he said that after a thorough investigation into allegations that Mrs. Winnie Mandela ordered the killing of Stombisi, no evidence was found to support such allegations. Most South Africans were not aware of such exoneration until this interview was published, and which sadly took place after Mrs. Mandela had passed away. To help the family find closure to this chapter, I believe that former Commissioner Fivers needs to meet with them, the family, to apologize for remaining for so long after this matter has come forth and continue to hang over Mama's head. I know that such a visit will be appreciated by the family. The despicable, inhuman humiliation that Mama Winnie was subjected to when she was incarcerated is not widely known. However, her ability to forgive those who so shamefully treated her when she was in a lonely, dark cell without any recourse to proper sanitation is testament to the big heart that she had. Those who continue to vilify Mama Winnie, even after what Mr. Fivers has said, will be surprised to learn that after her release from prison, besides attending her Methodist church regularly, she visited a number of churches. In one of the churches she visited, I saw her respond to an altar call to give her life to Jesus. According to Acts 2:21 and Romans 10:13, everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Whenever we lose a member of this house, it is a reminder that our days on earth are short. We might be next in line. That is why it is very important that we prepare ourselves for eternity and respond to the call of salvation. I also want to give a word of advice to some Christians who are often quick to judge, particularly when they do not know what the deceased's last prayer was. When Jesus was on the cross, one of the criminals hanging next to him said to him, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And in his response, Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise," without reminding that criminal of his offenses. Mama Winnie, who was known to be a prayerful woman, is gone. My prayer is that her children and grandchildren would follow in her footsteps and be men and women of prayer as their mother was. I want to encourage the family. The Lord Jesus is your strength. Allow the one who holds your future in his hand to hold your hand and lead you beside still waters. I spoke to Zizi Mandela this morning, who said that it is difficult without Mama, and which is understandable. But I also want to remind Zizi that Jesus Christ, who holds your future in his hand is able to ensure that you make it through the darkest hours. I pray that he will heal your broken hearts, comfort your souls, and assure you all that when you pass through the waters and storms of life, he will be with you. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be consumed. May the goodness of the Lord lead you all to salvation, and may the peace of God that surpasses all understanding be your portion. Thank you.
Honorable Mjais.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Don't expect me to preach as the Reverend has been doing here. Perhaps I may miss the point. Greetings to the families of the deceased. I'm happy that now we are going to pay tribute to Winnie Mandela as EIC, because she's coming from a regional friend, so who are about to be incorporated into KZN, that region of Ferrekwala. We convey our condolences to the family of Winnie Mandela. Comrade Winnie was a stalwart that will never be forgotten. She was a selfless leader, not interested in any positions. To show her discipline and humbleness, she listened when she was instructed to withdraw her name from being voted as the deputy president in my gang. I was one of the delegates there. So she listened. So she was a disciplined member. She devoted her life to the service of the people. She was a very diligent and a strong woman who could not just accept any nonsense but the freedom of the people of South Africa. Her contribution to the struggle made us to be where we are today. It is therefore befitting to celebrate her life. She enjoyed a lot and enjoyed little even after the political freedom had been obtained. I agree with Honorable Julius Malema when she said she was rather, I'm sorry, you are not a woman, my son, I'm sorry. When he said, Winnie Mandela was a president that we did not have. It is true, because she was a very powerful woman. She was just unlucky not to be even given just a little chance to head any of the government departments, but she never complained. Sidzi, Senani, members of Mandela family and Matigizela, ANC members, friends, and compatriots, who have lost a woman that was cherished by all, even internationally. She was not too much of a lady. She was a very strong woman. It is done. That is the way to go. Let us soldier on until we get it all. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Honorable Tlowama.
Honorable members, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, and the Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable members, we will never be forgiven for treating Winnie as if she was Eugene de Kock. We even treated children of apartheid well. We even made Martinus van Schalkwyk a minister. We also treated the last apartheid president, Mr. F.W. de Klerk, better. We did not give her the honor she deserved. Honorable members, Winnie was hated because she refused token crumbs of white supremacy. She stood against those who sold our revolution and made a pact with apartheid killers. Even when she was alive, she was treated like a mysterious relic only visited to wash away people's sins and their guilty conscience. Winnie is our identity. She has personified what we are aspiring to be as Africans. Honorable members, this is how we must honor the mother of the nation. Let us make Alexander to be like Santen. Let us make Khayelitsha to be like Constantia Park and Camps Bay. Let us make this economy to belong to our people. Let us not hesitate to take over the mines and give them to communities which they are operating. To Mandela family, know that those who speak bad about our mother of the nation, they equally speak bad about black beauty, black pride, and African identity in general. May Winnie, your spirit will forever guide our conscience. In your name, we will never surrender. We will never surrender until we realize the spiritual, fiscal, cultural, and economic emancipation of Africans. Even in heaven, continue to protect us, Mama Winnie, from the dangerous spirits of the Fairford and the Foster, which still manifests itself through racism in South Africa. Honorable members, there is no beauty in death, no beauty in mourning. Winnie, you showed us a way. We will never let you down. I want to say this to the Mandela family. Know very well that we will keep you forever in our hearts. Your pain is our pain. And we thank God for allowing people like us, mere mortals, to live during the time of this giant. Rest in peace, Mama. I thank you.
Honorable Gordy.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, comrades and honorable members. The APC joins Parliament in celebrating and saluting the life and sterling contribution to our liberation struggle of Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. She faced and survived the savagery and brutality of the white minority state. She epitomized the Africanist motto of serve, suffer, and sacrifice. On behalf of all the Africanists, we honor her. We had no issues with her. Her militancy and activism resonated with our line. She was banished to Brantford in the Free State, which also served as the banishment place for our late President Zephaniah Mutuping upon his release in his first stint on Robben Island in the late 1960s. When some within a movement condemned her in the late 1980s, our leader Zeph Mutuping publicly refused to condemn her. We gave her a rousing welcome when she came to be with us in Mthatha Stadium at the funeral of General Sabelo Palmer, our beloved and heroic Chief Commander of the Azanian People's Liberation Army in February 1994. May her soul rest in power. May she continue long into the future to inspire generations of young activists to remain true to the cause of Africa. May we, in her memory, not renege in the cause for the repossession of our land, the nationalization of the Reserve Bank, the establishment of a state bank and state insurance company as tools for far-reaching socio-economic transformation to end inequality. Izwe lethu.
Honorable Makwebu.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mama Thandi Modise, members of the House, fellow South Africans. Maya Angelou once wrote, I quote, "A great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. It brings us all together again and again." Look at us this afternoon as we gather in this august house to pay tribute and celebrate the life of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. This august house is, as I was thinking, as I was seated before I came to the podium, is one of the legacies she bequeathed to us to ensure that we debate and ponder the future of South Africa, both of us, black and white, to ensure that when we die, as we all shall die one day, we leave a better country than the one we found, for our children's sake, just like as she did. Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela ngumthomkhulu owileyo, mama wesizwe gohakazi kwade kwasekufeni. Mama Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela, during the dark and cold days of apartheid, you were like a candle in the wind. You provided light in the midst of darkness, and for that, we are eternally grateful. You provided hope in the midst of pain and suffering, and once again, for that, we are indeed eternally grateful. Bob Riley members once wrote, allow me to quote him, I quote, "Hard times don't create heroes. It is during hard times when the hero within us is revealed." Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela confronted and challenged apartheid and all its brutality and demanded freedom for all of us and for children and generations to come. And again, for that, we are forever grateful. Sticks and batons broke her body, but they couldn't break her fighting spirit. No amount of torture, banishment, and harassment could silence you, Mama. Sidney Sheldon once wrote again, I quote, "My heroes are those who risk their lives every day to protect our world and to make it a better place," close quote. To your beautiful daughters, Zinzi and Zenani, we say to you, thank you for sharing your mother with us as the South African nation. We know it wasn't easy. And for that, again, we are eternally grateful. And may the good Lord richly bless you as we continue to ponder the future of South Africa. And on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, City Lalangwaxolo Gohagazi, Lalangwaxolo Mangutjana, Mzamo omhle uzamile, uqatsi ulifezile, Enkosi siyabulela.
Honorable the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Minister Naledi Pandor.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Members, I rise on behalf of the African National Congress Caucus to firstly express our deepest condolences to the family of Dr. Zola Skweyiya and Mama Winifred Madikizela Mandela. Rare golona matsogo a rona ke a re batla go a dirisa go phimola dikeledi tsa lona le ha re itse gore le rona re na le dikeledi. O ile mama me o tlogela leina e re le ratang thata ga re kake ra mo lebala re le mokgatlo wa African National Congress. The sudden passing of Mama Winnie has resulted in national grief an outpouring of never-told-before anecdotes, and a correct daily obsession with retelling and reviewing her life. Hers was much more than an ordinary life. She was an extraordinary woman, a woman of substance, who made an indelible contribution to our history, our struggle, and our freedom. Winnie was a true and faithful cadre of the liberation movement, and one of the finest examples of a dedicated, disciplined member of the African National Congress until her dying day. She never joined any other party. She never formed any other organization. She would be horrified at the efforts directed at separating her massive contribution from her loyalty to the African National Congress. At a memorial service held at OR Tambo Hall in Khayelitsha, her compatriot, Umama Comrade Mildred Lisia, said, "Ndiyanizwa nonke nithetha ngomama Winnie. Nithetha ngoWinnie i-politician. Nithetha ngoWinnie i-liberator. Kodwa ningalibali ukuthetha ngoWinnie umfazi obemhle kakhulu. uWinnie ebemhle." Her political awareness began when she was young, shaped by incidents of racism she observed as a child, the humiliation of black adults she witnessed regularly, and her direct observation that things were not right in South Africa. These early experiences shaped her love of justice and her readiness to defend all those who could not defend themselves. She believed that all must have the courage to resist and respond. She was born in 1936, a year in which fascism was on the rise in Europe. She grew up in the war years of the Second Great War. Even though apartheid was not yet formal policy, racism and colonial attitudes were very present in South Africa then. One of the practices Mama Winnie does not need from us is that which often happens once the living retell the history of the renowned leaders who have left us. Those who orate for those who have gone have a tendency to practice historical revisionism. They rewrite the historic contribution in the guise of apologists who, knowing their limited contribution, wish to insert themselves into the history of heroines and heroes, in the pretense that they too were there and shaped history. Winnie wrote her own history in action each day of her life. As a learner, as a student, as a grown woman, and as a political leader and activist. Her contribution can only be diminished by those who seek to amend it, to make themselves seem greater, or to wage a political battle in which they know they are inadequate without her political clout. We must tell her history as she lived and shaped it. She became politicized long before she met President Nelson Mandela. As a social worker, she began to do research on Alexander Township due to her concerns about high levels of infant mortality she witnessed at Baragwanath Hospital. She was appalled at the conditions she observed on visiting Soweto and Alexander, at the dire living conditions of black people. She took an active interest in changing these conditions. All of you here know how fiercely protective she was, how she hated unfairness and oppression. Mama Winnie distinguished herself in her partnership with Nelson Mandela, and the two can never be separated. They are one and the same thing, and no one must try to separate them. She was very young when they met, and they fell very much in love. They were married in Johannesburg on 25th May 1958 and were separated for most of their married life. He on Robben Island and she in various parts of our country and the world. During her husband's 27-year incarceration, she campaigned tirelessly for his release. She established a massive personal following. But there can never be a severing of Winnie and our former President Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is a national hero, and equally, Winnie, by her actions and a resolute contribution, is a national heroine. Winnie has always been and will always be respected within the African National Congress. She was a member of parliament until her death, and a source of political wisdom and encouragement to many of us. Yes, there were problems. Yes, there were difficulties. Yes, there was unfairness. But you can't separate Winnie from the African National Congress. In her last interview, given in March this year, and rebroadcast on Easter Monday afternoon by state broadcasters, she spoke of how she had always put the collective good of the ANC before her individual well-being. She expressed her worry about unemployment that remains at an historic high across the general population and as high as 2 out of 3 among young people. She expressed a concern about corruption, about the corruption that has undermined public finances as well as public confidence in the state. She didn't mince her words, never has, never did. Winnie helped to lay the foundation through her activism for a democratic South Africa. And if we pretend as we speak today that there has been no change in South Africa, we diminish the contribution of Comrade Winnie. Because to suggest that her lifelong contribution to freedom, her lifelong contribution to struggle, didn't result in a change, you diminish her contribution. Inspired by her, Free South Africa has made great progress, of course not enough, but progress nevertheless. Progress toward building a truly non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic South Africa. Together, through her, we have begun to establish a country that may become dedicated to patriotism, nation building, and indeed is committed to reconciliation. So what would Mama Winnie say as she looks at us and listens to us, sitting here, extolling her virtues, telling her story, expressing our admiration and gratitude? I suspect she would be impatient with us. She might think we are lazy in approaching the urgency of our contemporary challenges. She would remind us, as David Diop does in his evocative poem, Africa, My Africa. She would say, as he did, Africa, tell me, Africa, is this your back that is unbent? This back that never breaks under the weight of humiliation? This back trembling with red scars? and saying no to the whip under the midday sun. But a grave voice answers me. Impetuous child, that tree, young and strong, that tree over there, splendidly alone amidst white and faded flowers. That is your Africa, springing up anew, springing up patiently, obstinately, whose fruit, bit by bit, acquires the bitter taste of liberty. She would remind us that our backs must not be bent, must not break under the weight of humiliation. She would remind us that though our backs tremble with scars and we shield ourselves from the whip of oppression, this is Africa, our South Africa, springing up anew as patiently and obstinately as Mama Winnie was. Yes, this fruit of freedom has the bitter taste of liberty. Nevertheless, this is our legacy from her and all our freedom fighters. And we do not have the luxury of wasting time remolding her history. We must get on with the task of infusing her legacy of freedom with the sweet taste of belonging, of economic inclusion, and equality. Rather than looking to the past, Mama Winnie would expect us to look to the future, to build on the foundation for which she sacrificed herself and her family. Don't mourn her only with eulogies, tributes, and fine speeches. Mourn her by taking action and continuing the national democratic revolution. Celebrate her contribution by giving as much attention to the poor as she did. Change the lives of the most vulnerable in our country as she so dearly wished. Celebrate her by studying hard, by developing skills to serve the people with quality care. Celebrate her by making a practical reality of that ambition she upheld, that of achieving a better life for all, and a better life most especially for the poorest and most marginalized in our country and on the continent of Africa. She would expect us as public representatives to live our daily lives making a difference to the life of our people. Not catcalling at each other, not hurling insults. An insult does not build a road. An insult does not build houses. An insult does not educate our nation. In fact, the levels of insult we hurl at each other are the reason for the violence we are seeing in our society, because we are not an example to our nation that indeed, through expressing our differences by engagement, through teaching the building of consensus, through articulating the importance of negotiation, and not through burning buildings, not through burning libraries, not through raping women, not through murdering women, not through killing our girl children, but through learning to engage without violence. That is what we should be engaged in doing. Mama Winnie did her part. And given the massive contribution she made, what she has left us with is a giantess on whose shoulders we stand. The question we must answer is, since she gave us this advantage, what use do we make of this higher reach? That is all she would expect from us. We thank you and we express our deepest condolences to all the family. Rare, Mama robale ka khotso. Khotso e tla tlang ka ditiro tse re tla di dirang re le ntlo e kgolo e Palamente ya Afrika Borwa e emetseng ma-Afrika Borwa otlhe ga re bale le bala. Re emetse mongwe le mongwe o agileng mo nageng e. Ke yona tiro e re tshwantseng gore re fe maatla. Maatla a ile a tla le mme ga re lwela gore re kgone go tsena mo ntlong kgolo e re direle setšhaba sa rona. Ke a leboga.
Honorable members, the presiding officers of Parliament associate ourselves with the sentiments expressed by all of the speakers today. Shall we please rise to observe a moment of silence in memory of Ms. Madikizela Mandela. Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, that was the conclusion of tributes and the joint sitting is adjourned.
Well, a very good afternoon.